Record away.
All right, so we're recording. So Aaron, we were just talking about how it can become very easy to be comfortable and get complacent. And you were describing that as the human condition. But one thing that was profound with what you had just said to me about shifting this lifestyle into getting back to your purpose is, I think people can get hung up on, like you said, being addicted to the comfort. And it's more difficult. It's more entropic to kind of move through that. But also you said that you had recognized you were getting more comfortable and starting to actually enjoy it a little bit, and that you had to make a conscious choice to deliberately stop and go back, because that's not what you were put on earth to do for yourself. So do you think, my question to you is, do you think that another layer of feeling stuck is that people maybe don't really know what that purpose is?
Yeah, bang on. I think even simpler than that is the start of the journey for any of us is the self-awareness. So before you can actually even start to truly understand what your purpose might be, you have to start looking at yourself in a very honest way. Mm-hmm. So there's a difference between honesty and self-honesty. Honesty is the thing we get taught about, don't lie, don't lie. Self-honesty is about don't lie to yourself. So that is really knowing who you are and what's holding you back. Because if you search for your purpose without ever having self-awareness, you will chase, like many people will attest to, at 50, 60, 70. I spent my entire life thinking I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And oh my God, did I get it wrong? I wish I had. I wish I had. I wish I had. And all the wish I hads came out because they were set in motion. No one really had a true understanding, except I guess the Alan Watts and the hippies of the world in the 60s, about this idea. And they were too hippie-ish with it, of self-awareness. What is self-awareness? It's really simple. It's not books, it's not teachers, it's being honest, sniffing out your own junk. And I was going to swear them, but we don't. That, and that is the honest truth of it. Once we can face ourselves and say, and I bring it to situations, and I pick quite heavy ones for people. I just lied. Wow, I'm capable of manipulation. When you start to own the traits that every single human being on the face of the planet has, because we're all empaths, we're all narcissists, we're all capable of it all. When you're able to look at that, then that self-awareness develops even stronger, and you start to see your skills, you start to see your gifts for what they are. But you've got to start with that really simple premise of, who am I really? Not on the outside. You look at Steph and you look at me right now, I got a beard, and there's this physical thing, it's in front of you. Underneath, what is Steph thinking as she's listening to me, and what triggers a response in her mental process? What triggers a response in her physical process, a spiritual process? What does the same for me? Why is it when Steph and I talk, do I get so animated and so revved up? And so these are the things we need to learn about ourselves if we truly want to understand
all right,
ourselves enough.
I have to unpack you for a second, because you just really gave a profound dose of wisdom for everybody. And I just want to kind of reverse engineer and go back through our own processes, but also you had said that it starts with self-awareness. And I want to bring up this concept where, and this is something that I've been focusing on more so within myself and also externally, because it's always a reflection of inner and outer. So I can't say that I'm just working on it in the world and not actually working on it within the self, is to claim that we're doing certain things, claim that we're embodying particular contexts of words, but we're actually not truly embodying it to the subtle degree where it creates this sustainable shift. So when you say something like, it has to start with self-awareness, I would be under the presumption that a large aggregate of the population would say, well, I am self-aware. Or if you said, stop lying to yourself, somebody might say, well, I don't lie to myself. So what do we say to those people who kind of maybe have not, because here's the reality. When you embody the experience of calling out your own bullshit, and when you embodied doing the self-awareness work, you really know without a doubt. You're like, no. Like, you know. So how do you think what might be beneficial for somebody who thinks they're self-aware or thinks that they're being honest to themselves? Like, how do we share the depth at which this runs and the benefit of exploring that? And what can we do what kind of practices can we do to help us learn or reflect that self-awareness or that deceit? For me, I tend to use a lot of mirroring as an aspect of teacher and guide for me. So I'm always using my external environment as a way to mirror back, not what's wrong with them, but where I'm out of alignment or in incorrect thinking. So what do you feel about that?
You've just like, that is the $1 million question. This is what my search is all about. It's to simplify. And this is what I said to you when we're going to have a chat again, is it's coming back to the very simple, which is the very real. There's so much in what you said, and there's so much in the answer. Like, we could do 6 or 7 recordings on this very simple, because this is the crux of who we are and our purpose. Because where do we start? We could start with understanding the ego's role, because the ego is that thing that corrupts and takes all of those parts that we think we understand and tells us we're not lying to ourselves and that we're not, that we've got it and that we understand it. But the ego in itself is a 6-part discussion. Let's try and go back. Let's go back to,
Can I pause you for 1 second? I want to see if we can flip this on its head and invert it. And instead of sharing what we need to share about the skill sets and the ways in which we can start to address this stuff and be aware of it, is why the hell are we doing this? What is it within us that we feel is so important to share with people to continue to do this work? What is it? I know what it is for me. And there within lies the simplicity, is I know this feeling that I have is what I would love to see other people feel more able to achieve. Like, this sort of enlightenment process, not being for some sort of elite group of people, is that you can achieve a state of flowing amongst the paradoxes of life and the ups and downs, and still have that tiny, almost invisible seed planted within your soul and spirit, that you know what it's like when it's hard and you feel it, but you also know what it's like when it's wonderful and you feel it. But there's something within you that's truly like sovereign. So you're not so unstable or emotionally reactive. And to me, having that is what I desire to share within the world, and how wonderful it is to be able to flow amongst the complexities of our existence and still be okay.
Yeah. And you know what? One very simple word. And it's sort of, you'll hear my voice has completely changed now, because it actually kind of saddens me a bit to talk about this, because this is my perspective of what's going on here, is it comes from a real deep sense of empathy and care. It really is. If we take away all of what we talk about and we go back to what really drives me, I look at the world around me, and especially for me, especially with kids, and I look at, I went and battled poachers. I went and did all this. I went to prison twice. I did this because I wanted to create a better world for children. So for me, that's what drives. And that really, if you take away all the words, is a deep sense of care or a deep sense of empathy. It's like you just said, I want to be able to engage with someone and give them that little piece of me that helps them feel better about their life, their relationship, their parent, whatever it is that they need to feel better about. So what is that in its rawest form? That is, it's a deep sense of empathy, not empathy, the word that you can get caught up in, I feel other people's emotions. No. A deep sense of connection and care. True
care.
Not because we get caught up, and you and I know this really well, that people will say care, and I say, I'm an empath and I feel, well, be very cautious. That's again what I talked about with the ego, which is probably a 6-part to chat. Be cautious of that ego jumping in front and you saying, oh no, but I'm an empath and I feel people's emotion. That's not what Stephanie and I are talking about here. And I know it's hard to sort of understand. This is a deep, true sense of care, which has come from, I believe, possibly adversity, challenge, where we connect on a level that is very different. So I wish you and I could find right now is that magic button with human is what's that button? How do we get the care? How do we remove the apathy that is in the world, which is no one's fault? I'm not blaming a single person for the state of where they're at. I only would ever judge a person for being presented and then not trying. That is it. I can't blame anyone. So
a couple of things came up as you were talking. This aspect of true care and how it can covertly be co-opted by looking like care in the world, but really stemming from, again, that pernicious aspect of the ego, wanting to be seen, validated, approved of. So we're going to act like we care. But when it comes to the knowing, when there's true care, there's no need to act upon or how do I become more empathetic? How do I become more compassionate? In those words would direct us by proxy to tell us that actually is not an embodied quality, because you don't have to actively 100%. Do it, right? So the other thing is this aspect of true care and wanting to be of service to generations that are coming after us, to me is, again, an aspect, a facet of true care. It's not the mentality of, as long as I'm taken care of and my family's taken care of, like, I don't know what else is going on with it without in the world. And in fact, I don't care. It's where you do care what seeds you plant for the people that it will service when you're gone. And I think
there's a saying, Stephanie, we need to look up quickly before we get off today. There's a saying that embodies this. I think it's an African proverb, something along the lines of, when a man plants the seeds of the one I'm talking about, plants the seeds of the tree that he will know that he will never bear fruit from. Right, that is when he is shown true wisdom. I got shivers. If we can find that before we get off and give that to people, because that is, you've just hit the nail on the head. That is what we want, is that I don't do this to feel better about myself. My core wound of I'm not enough, which every human on the face of the planet has, everyone from the Dalai Lama all the way down to the first next born child in the world as we talk, is born with that master wound of I'm not enough. Some of us learn to understand it. It still smacks me in the face occasionally now. When you get past that and you start to understand that you are worthy and that you are enough, you start to give without expectation. And when you reach that give without expectation, that is, to me, the very simplest way to explain true connection or true care, because I will give and I don't ever look at that as I feel better about myself. I give because, geez, I needed that because I felt less than. It's just not in my nature anymore. I have my days, and again, I'm still a human being, and I can guarantee you that it creeps in, but it is because of this self-awareness that we're talking about, that I can say, like I say, I lied, I manipulated. I just had a really bad day. I missed my kids in Africa, and I had a day where I played with my son more because I was lacking. That's the self-awareness moment, that ability to say, okay, I need to meditate a little bit more tonight. I need to do a breath exercise. I did yesterday. This is where you tie all this together with action.
Yes. Again, I love talking to you because so much comes up, so much richness comes up in each little sentence. But I want to go back to when you said this core wound of not being enough. And actually, in fact, as you were saying that, I was really recognizing that the proclivity of the ego, when it constantly wants to take over the mind and our thoughts, is that we continuously seek ways in which we feel worthy to the degree where we can't move out of our own way to actually be ultimate service, because we're just continuously trying to seek ways in which we feel good enough. So I think at some point, like you said, and I'm a big fan of this gentleman named Daniel Schmachtenberger. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a really profound thinker and civilization upgrader type of guy. And he was suggesting that in order for people to kind of catch up in the ways of the world and to embody this self-awareness, to make true sustainable change, he said, I believe that we need to go through some sort of ritualized discomfort in a group of people to help people. Because I think as I sit here and I talk to you and the people that I connect with that I barely even know, so to speak, in the real world, but there's such an immediate resonance, is because without saying it's just God connecting people, which I'm not doubting that that's what it is, and that unseen realm and resonance, but it's that I know a little bit of your story, and I think I could feel the resonance of the degree to which you suffered and were willing to admit your shortcomings and the ways in which you suffered and the mistakes that you've made. That level of depth of authenticity and honesty and full spectrum human. Like, right, I've done a lot of amazing things, but I've also done a lot of horrible things that I wish I would change. That range that you hold of honesty with the suffering, coupled with the wonderful things, and being able to share that's what I felt when I somehow reached out to you. I was like, I could tap into that, because I know that within myself. And I think people more than ever are seeking just deep, meaningful conversations. But it's one of those things where, the depth at which somebody wants to go has to be the depth that you're willing to touch within yourself as well too. And we really can only truly learn and grow from someone who has maybe gone deeper than we have, a little bit deeper, or challenge us to come out of our bubble a little bit more. So I love when you were saying, this aspect of moving into the self-awareness. Moving into the self-awareness state actually is the least self-directed as possible. It's actually kind of like it's kind of like reversed. It's like developing self-awareness just strictly helps you to be better service to others.
100%. And I was just, this ability to be honest, as we do this, and you do this to me. So I was saying to my partner, I talk to you, is that you challenge as we talk. Like very few people are able to do this, where you can talk to them and you stop me dead in my tracks. Like, I think I know what I'm going to say next. And I'm like, oh, there's a keyword. And then I go, bang. We're talking about the very fundamental building blocks of growth and change in a human being. And like, you literally just floored me.
I love that. I love that.
We are, and this is really,
of growth
people
and
can
change.
understand. It is, because, and really this is it's the difference between the ego wants relief, the soul, the spirit, the whatever you want to call it, part of your body wants change. And there's those two voices. And I used to liken it to, and I don't know where this is coming from, I haven't used this analogy in quite a long time, is you wake up every single morning with two balls of light. One is an ego and one is a soul, or whatever word you're comfortable with. And you get to choose which one you feed. But you choose it with actions. And if self-awareness is that first thing in the morning, what's the first thought that hits your mind? So if you work with a coach or someone like myself, that's what I start getting you to do. What is your first thought? Do you drink half a liter of water? And then I start breaking down those first things, because that's the ball of light you feed. When you come into the conscious world, as you take your first awakened breath. So I know that's probably a little bit off, but it just hit me like a nutshell, because we're simplifying everything. And I really want, like we've said, people who might listen to this to go, this is all good and well, and I love listening to you guys, but what do I do? And if you want to know what to do, you picture yourself in the morning with those two balls of light, and you can start your awareness almost there. What is that first thought? Is it, I'm late? I hit snooze 7 times. It's simple things, really, really simple things.
You know what's interesting is I was really, I'm going to call myself out here on, listen, the reality is when you're on an evolutionary path, you're going to change. You're going to change and be different. And I've come to some big foundational and fundamental realizations, and, things that I'm starting to look at a little bit different. But I was kind of hopped up on this, no guru, no mentor, no teacher philosophy for a while. And but that was really me needing to separate. I was at that stage in my growth and evolutionary process where I needed to trim away everything to really truly discover, what am I starting with? What do I have a base of? And what you're saying is, it almost seems like if you're going to talk about like these foundations of growth and evolution and change, there needs to be this beautiful dichotomy of isolation and space with self, and then space with others, and then maybe a little more space by yourself to integrate, and then space with others. Because what you're talking about is, how do we encourage people? Like you said, they're listening to us. Okay, but how do I do this? It's almost helpful to have somebody to help you push you out of pop your bubble, or get you out of your comfort zone a little bit, because we're so conditioned to do the same thing that the rate of change, if we're doing it by ourselves, can often be small and incremental, which can be maybe more easy to assimilate. But if you have somebody who's willing to push you a little further, your growth might be faster, so to speak, but you're still going to have to integrate the process. So it's kind of like, for me, along my journey, what has been really tremendously helpful at different points of my evolution has been listening and watching people who either were out of my comfort zone because academically or intellectually I wasn't speaking the same language, or maybe they were, enlightened gurus and I who were really challenging me to think, to expand my mind. And it's one of those things where so often I don't think that others really recognize how quickly they can shift and transmute and transcend and gain things like innate intelligence or wisdom. But it's what you're surrounding yourself with a lot in your environment, coupled with how you're thinking, to be able to like expand the mind space.
But geez, you did it again. Like literally, you used the word I'm in love with, which is the word challenge, because we talked about ease and comfort, or we talked about how we're addicted to this comfort state. The reality of the human brain is the longer it stays in that comfort state, the longer it maintains that chemical balance that is comfortable for it, the harder it is for it to change. It will seek relief. It will listen to a documentary. It'll listen to a guru. It'll chase the knowledge, but it won't take the knowledge and turn it into wisdom, which is the act of taking action on knowledge turns it into wisdom. So, to get change, you need challenge in our day and age. Now, if you live in the third world, not true. Okay. I'm talking very much about the Western world. I'm talking about ease and comfort here, not a villager in Africa. And this is why I exist. And you're very right there, is that I am the challenge. I am the guy that pushes the button. I am the guy that pushes you. And this is why I struggle probably financially as a coach and very successful in how I do it, what I do, but I don't make because I'm a challenger. My job is to antagonize the ease and comfort, because you said it best. There's no point me repeating what you did, is that we get into that addictive state, habitual mentality of this is easy, this is comfortable. When the little voice roars up and says, there's more to you, there's more for me, I'm a better this, I'm a better that, you go and grab a book by Anthony Robbins, or you sit and watch a YouTube, or if you're feeling, socially conscious, you watch a doco about Green Earth or something like that. And then you breathe a sigh of relief and you've relieved. Yeah. And that is that voice of relief. And that's the difference when the challenge comes up, and it could be someone like me, or it could be a family member passing, a tear up of a relationship, child, a parenting issue. That challenge will then shake you up, literally like a can of Coke. And then that's where your opportunity comes to really shift, because just like shaking up a can of Coke, energy, the amount of energy you produce in that shaking of that fizzy drink or anything you do, once you let that go, then you've got your choices back. When you stay in that relief pattern, there's no choice. You think you've got a choice. No, you do not. Those books, those documentaries, those gurus keep you, not them themselves, your choice and your intention in using them keeps you in that same habitual pattern of, I feel better about myself because I watched that. I read that book about parenting, I'm a better parent, knowing full well that you have not done anything with it. You've absorbed a ton of knowledge, which seems great, but knowledge is pointless if we do not turn it into wisdom by taking action on it. And that is, and that is the simplicity of what it is. And it doesn't need to be a coach. I use me because, look, that's what I do for a living. But it doesn't have to be. You can wake up any given day and you've never run in your life and decide that for 7 days you're going to run a K in the morning. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be related. To be a better parent, you don't have to get up and do parenting stuff for 30 days. You can get up and drink a liter of water every morning and do a gratitude list, and you will become inadvertently a better parent in 30 days. So again, that's the simplicity of this. It doesn't have to be tied. It's not complex. We don't have to sit through days of learning procedures and tools. We just need to embody the very simple stuff that you can sort of pull from what Steffi and I are offering.
Like turning off the television,
Bang.
shutting the books,
yes.
and becoming an active participant in your own experience.
Bang on. That's simple as that.
Yeah, you talking about this point between gaining and gathering and seeking knowledge coalesced with, now how do I apply this? And the pernicious nature of relief, man, it's like it's a drug. It's like
it is. It's
any little thing better than where I was at. Oh, I'm good now. I'm good.
Oh. And we'll do that solo. That tends to be when we're in our solo phase. That's what we will tend to do. And trust me, I've done it for 30 years. That seek. I'm learning. So therefore I'm going to be, which was really just me filling that master wound of I wasn't enough. You and I both know that in our most brilliant moments, say talking to each other, it's not coming from any books or any of this stuff. It's coming through us, which is that connection to whether it be universal wisdom and the knowledge, but also the fact that we put it into action because challenge basically forced us to, in a way. Not forced us. We did have choices along the way, but many of those times the choices weren't really that easy. We were going with, I'm not going to let this beat me. You know what I mean? That was us. Some people might not. But again, yeah.
The will to live. is important.
And to give, and it goes back to what we're talking about this true sense of care. And I err on the side of not using empathy, because I see the word used and bastardized a fair bit these days. It really is, because for me, again, driven as a father or looking at the world, I wasn't given the experiences I was given to pack it in. It wasn't why. You don't get what my childhood, you don't get what I've done with my life to just sit back and cruise. Now, how that pans out for the world around me doesn't matter, as long as my intention is to give freely and without expectation.
How do we, I want to talk about something that I see quite a bit amongst particular narratives that are going on in multiple countries, is this desire to use victim states to feel better. And I just want to talk about that for a little bit, because it's in thinking that somebody owes you something. Just give me your opinion. I mean, to me, that keeps us trapped in a consistent.
It's disempowering. It's disempowering. But understand, if you look at it again from a base primal need, it's what we talked about with the government doing things for us. It basically means we don't have to do anything. So for many people who buy the victim state, it is really just an easy way to cop out.
Right.
Just not going to play the game.
Right.
Not going to play the game. For others, the victim state is an incredibly potent force which cripples them. I mean, most addicts, people suffering from heavy mental illness will all have that victim state inside them. But if we talk about, sort of the middle class, the living public who vote and pretty much drive where we are in our first world countries, it is that ability to just cop out. I don't have to play this game. And it serves their purpose, because it goes back and ease and comfort. All I need to worry about is getting up in the morning, going to work, doing the best I can by my kids. And just that robotic nature of, if I do these 5 things every day, I'm doing my best. And that's that. And then whenever it flares up and the voice inside says, whoa, you're a better parent than that if you fail on that front, or you could do better by your partner if you fail on that front, or you could level up and do more with your job, or you could volunteer to give back to your community, or whatever it may be. And that little voice creeps up, and it creeps up. Everyone's got it. We go into that victim to quell it. The victim pushes the voice back down and says, I don't want to hear about you telling me I should be a part of my community. I don't want you to tell me I should go and door knock my street and introduce myself to my neighbors so that we all feel a little bit safer. I don't want to do those things. So I'm going to blame, and I'm going to sit in front of the news, and I'm going to blame the government, and I'm going to blame this, and I'm going to find, because that quells that fire, that pushes that voice down, because the soul can't deal with this victim.
We get incentivized and rewarded by connecting with others who maintain that mentality. So it's social media it's so inverted to where we're propagating our victim mentality and we're getting praised for it. And actually in the public eye, right.
And this is the other thing, this is a whole thing we could to talk about, that everything we're talking about here is that when you quell that, and when you use these so-called negative traits, if you don't become self-aware of them, you want to know why you get sick, you want to understand more about the human condition and health, then start looking there. Because a lot of what is making us sick is not this physical body corrupting and decaying and dying, because it is perfect in every way. It is this bombardment, it is this environment that we have created and that we continue to choose. That is, but that's another discussion.
I would love to come back with you and talk about the permeability between our outer and inner environment. And really the simultaneity of if they're working together in a more harmonious balance. I mean, for me, part of that feminine energy within me, that more yin energy of really being aware of the environment. Who are you participating with? Who are you connecting with? Who are you intimate with? Who are you, and to the food we eat, to everything that we do, is how much that accounts for how balanced and aligned we are within our inner state, and vice versa. That reflection.
I say to people, what are you consuming? When I say to them, I talk about this, what are you consuming? And I'll go, oh, well, I had this for breakfast. I'll go, whoa. When you woke up this morning, what was the first thing you looked at? When you went from that point, what was the second thing? Because consumption, our organs were designed physiologically, not just to consume the food we eat and the liquids we put in our bodies, but also the emotions and the feelings and the outer environment as we connect with it as a connected being, because that's what nature is full of. So until we understand that Netflix is consumption, as you've just said, the people that we are around, the music that we listen to is consumption, the environment when we sit in the car is consumption. These are all things that we are consuming. And if we are bombarded with things that don't sit with how our heart, mind, body, soul balance works for us individually, then we become out of kilter when we don't notice or have no self-awareness to feel that. Why is my knee shot? I don't, whatever it may be that manifests, we get sick and it gets worse and we feed it, because then you brought up beautifully, the victim comes in and then the victim says, oh, I can't, my knee's sore. And then the victim, and that noticeable, that intention of, poor me, feeds the wound. And we don't understand, again, that's like the C word at the moment. And the C word is a beautiful lesson for us to understand how easily we focus on this thing called C, when the truth is the bigger picture is what's poisoning our minds. Because the fact that we can swallow hook, line and sinker and follow a narrative so easily without any free thought, shows just how poisoned our mind state is. Now whether we agree or disagree with the C, it doesn't matter, because to me it's just a non-event. It happens and it's got its own course that we can't alter. But how we swallow and have chosen to basically, like we've been talking about, to go into, I'm not playing, I'll just do what they tell me.
Life, according to, I would say, the majority of people, would assume that from the moment we're born, we go through this process that's going to eventually lead to some sort of entropic process. Like it's going to start to come down, right? There's going to be a high and then it's going to start to come down. And I think we fail to realize that with every low comes yet another high if you permit it to be there. So would you say simply that right now in this time in history, the pull towards being passive and being a victim and not taking action and hopping on to the excess of, be vulnerable and let's be soft and, work together. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I do think that right now in today's day and age, you're gonna have to do something different. It feels as though if you want to stand and you want to make a difference in the world, you're going to have to go against what the aggregate is doing. And right now, it's like, if you want to make change within yourself or beyond, you have to work for it and take action for it. And most likely you're going to be going against particular people, friends, groups, or narratives. What does it take to do that? Why should somebody do that? Why should somebody perceivably take the harder route and do that?
Wow. I'm not even sure how to answer that, because to answer it for me, I've already done that today. Like for me, it's my drive. How do you feel? How do you do for other people?
You're doing this work? How does it make you feel?
Well, I know how I feel when I don't do it. See, for me, once I'm in the rhythm of doing it, that's just me. And that's the thing, is I'm not thinking anymore. When I'm not thinking, I know I'm home. When I'm thinking is when I know I've come off flow and I'm actually not doing what I was put here for. The more the mind chatters, the more I know I'm getting it wrong.
I have to stop you.
That's my simple thing. Yeah.
I have to stop you because, again, doing this work requires you at some point, or you have this discernment to see that most of what we're doing is inverted or flipped, or you start doing things in like the completely 180 opposite direction. So what I mean is, you said, by doing this work, I just am in my most authentic state. And how do I do this? Because I'm most uncomfortable when I'm not that which I already am. So whereas usually if you're not, that's a good way to, maybe that would be a good indicator whether or not this sort of work would be beneficial for you, is if you're looking at it the opposite way of like, I don't really know what's bad for me because I'm still working on what's good for me. Whereas like then you still are finding your true self, because once you're in the state of true self, you only know when you're out of it and it's really uncomfortable and you have to get yourself back in it.
And there's your awareness. And then we're back to where we started. And that is that early stages of assessing your thoughts, because this is where one of the easier ways to do it, and this is where it's easier with a guide. You could look, Steffi and I did it by ourselves. So I'm not saying you can't, but to have someone help you does make it a little bit easier to look at what you think about. Because when you start looking at it and you start seeing the obsessions and and then you start to understand where it is you're not supposed to be. Because when the mind is constantly chattering, your mind will not stop. It's like an alarm bell of sorts, you know what I mean? And also understanding, and I guess I don't want to put too much weight on this, but be cautious, because whatever those are doing and wherever they're concentrating and feed, that is what you will continue to create, so that the world will show you what it is that you need to learn. Yeah. Right, so you put the thought, the thing comes and you go, oh, I'm right. Look at me. I knew that was going to happen. You created it for one, and also the universe, God, your soul, whatever word, whatever thing you're comfortable with is talking to you. It's trying to show you. And until you're able to find that self-awareness to look at it honestly, because like the first stage is looking at it, but then the ego hijacks it. So stage one, you'll look at it, and then the ego will come and you go, I know, I'm looking, I know what I'm doing. And the ego will tell you, and you could sit in a conversation, in a room with people and say, I know, I'm awareness. I got that. I've been doing that for years now. Well, then there's a second stage, which is called the ego death. And that is, and it doesn't die forever. Don't think that ever happens, but it dies its first death. And then you get introduced with this, oh man, I've been kidding myself for years. I've been sitting there with people telling them I'm aware. I haven't had a clue. And then you get back up again, the phoenix rises. And then this is the continuing shift of back and forth as you have this, you could say battle, or this debate with your ego and its role. And that's where Steph and I can have these conversations, and we can have this back and forth, and there's so much comes up because we've done this. I don't count how many times we've both done it, but a lot.
Aaron, I want to, again, just kind of simplify and go back for 1 second. And when you were talking about how you were saying to the audience, like, you and I can have these conversations, these wisdom conversations, and it's not coming from a book. It's not coming from something else. So I just want to share with people at least the honesty of when I'm talking. You can, maybe it's the same for you too. I don't want to speak for you, but it's not who I am, and what I express is not coming from thought. It's not coming from thinking. It's not coming from gaining wisdom that's enhancing my intellect. It's not coming from thought. It's flowing through this innate source that started to cultivate and grow when I started to address the ego, realize that all thoughts are lies, and to really face that ego, because the ego, the mind, the thoughts, oh no, they're not lies. They're here. You need me. I need to be around here. So really what I'm trying to share with people is, it's not so much of a gaining of anything. It's a releasing of that mind, all thought. Along my process, a pastor said to me, all thoughts are lies. And I had already done a significant amount of self-work. So I was really sitting with this. I was like, well, all thoughts? Well, hold on. Let me think to make sure that all thoughts are lies, right? And really at the end of the day, that ego really wants to tell you how you still need to think and that they're still very important. But at the end of the day, my work, my true care, the true empathy that we're talking about, the service to others, anything that's coming through the mind is typically hijacking the purity of that thing that already is. So it's kind of like really disconnecting from the thought process. And it seems like the complete opposite thing that we should do to develop greater self-awareness is to reduce your knowledge and do less, and don't think, don't study, don't overseek. I mean, I did that, and it becomes exhausting at some point. I'm not saying that it's all helpful, but what's coming through me, Stephanie, this I am that I am, Stephanie, right, is not my thoughts. And in fact, my thoughts are always what screw it up and what disconnect me from my true nature. So it's just a different way, a different paradigm of being. It's not doing and thinking. It's truly of letting yourself, you said, be good enough as you are, and the rest will develop and cultivate as you embark on your journey and have interactions and experiences with others. Like, it's all going to come. There's no need to desperately seek out your learning lessons. You're going to get them whether you like it or not, right? So I think this is what I'm trying to say in simplifying this process is, it seems like it's this whole body of work that one can attain, but really it's actually paradoxically much more simple. But it's the battling of the ego and the minds and the thoughts that makes it hard. And even for me to this day, I still want to say, you know, I definitely need that thought. Like I definitely need that one. But really it's you don't. It's that constant challenge to release the thinking, let it go, and to just flow. You're enough as you are to just flow.
We are innately powerful and we've forgotten. And it's really as simple as that. And I think that where you and I understood this and where we've come to understand it is that we went through challenges in life that asked us to trust. Because there is an element, it's not a word that we've really used just yet, but when someone's listening to this, there is an element of trust here, because I listen to Stephanie and it's like listening to myself, and I'm sitting there as if I'm not me going, how would someone outside this receive this so we can get to the bottom of how we can inspire people? And it really is, there is a moment where you trust, because all of this stuff is really awesome to listen to, but once you start to try and work it, there is a point where you trust that the thoughts are wrong, because you've got to, because the ego will convince you. Mine still does. It's a crazy thing to play a game with it, because that's what I try to turn it into. Because sometimes you can end up really not liking yourself when it's really just ego, because there is nothing wrong with you. It is that safety mechanism that the ego is created through its past experiences to try and keep you safe, which is in fact destroying your ability to be that innate gifted individual that you are. Because aside from everything we say here, this is all just natural. I don't, as Stephanie's just pointed out, I don't need to think when I talk and when I'm whole, and when I look at my live content, I know the difference when I'm me or when my ego has hijacked it and made a mistake, stumbled and jumped in and tried to railroad the process because I don't want to be embarrassed. Because as a human being, I have an innate fear of being embarrassed. And so the ego says, well, I'm going to protect you here. I need to sound clever. So let me use as many big words. Let me try and fix it for you. And what my ego does is take away from the fact that in that mistake, I was vulnerable as a human. I could have taken a breath and actually just continue on with that universal wisdom that every single one of us has inside us. And it would have been fine. But that ego will jump in. It'll hijack everything.
And it'll want to over structure everything so that you're safe. I mean, I was just thinking about our dialogue here is we had a couple very brief conversations about things that we were interested in, but nothing was planned, nothing was structured. Like you said, we're not going off of an academic way of educating. This is just something that we're sourcing that anybody has access to. And it's really just, again,
anybody
shedding the ego, just facing your ego each and every day. And like you said, the most important thing, and we should probably wrap up soon because we'll talk forever. We'll have to come back again. But this ability, to me, I feel as though along my journey, the word courage means to me.
I was about to say.
It just simply means to me, trusting what you can't see. And you have to just continuously trust what you can't see. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things innately for a human to do, is to trust what you don't see. But I can't tell you that all of my lessons have come down to that very principle, is asking me to trust what I can't see.
Yeah, and then take action on it. And that's the second part of that. And it's something we'll do more of, we'll talk more of, because it is trusting what you can't see. And then it's that 60 seconds of courage to say, I will take action on this. Now, not in tomorrow morning, not that's the procrastination, but that I'm going to take action on it now. So it's uncomfortable. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm having days where as a dad, I shut down and I'll stop after this. I would walk my children down the road, down the pathway, and I would make a point of making eye contact and saying hello to every single person I walked past. And the more people that didn't say it back to me, the more I walked, because it made me uncomfortable. That little challenge shook me up like that can of soda or whatever, enough for that energy to shift in me so that I could realize that my 60 seconds of courage needed to get bigger and grow back and grow bigger. So Yeah, I would suggest to anyone, if you're looking for something simple to try and manifest or put together anything of what we've said, go find something that makes you uncomfortable and do it.
You know, before we wrap up here, again, the element of us as a society, as cultures as a whole, here in the West and in the, you know, not in Africa, not in tribes, like you were saying before, is that we've permitted ourselves unknowingly or unconsciously to be so out of alignment that the amount of burnout and apathy and lack of energy feels like the block between, okay, this sounds great to be able to challenge myself, but I don't have anything left to even want to, I don't have any energy to challenge myself. So this is, again, another part of the process, is that everybody goes through this. These challenges that you're facing, we've all had to face those same crossroads, and to continue to get up and try again and step in that challenge and trust the unknown. So it's, you know, we've all had to do that, and we'll all continue to have to do that as we choose to evolve and grow. If you don't want to evolve and grow, you don't have to take those extra steps.
Yeah, and the simple reality of creating that energy when you feel like there is none is the steps are really simple. Like I went through the years of taking huge leaps. I mean, huge leaps, thinking that I had to create something monumental to shift. And I've learned, and what I teach now is it's 5 to 10 minutes a day. Yeah. It's how you start your day creates the energy. It's that simple. It doesn't take monumental change. It doesn't change. It doesn't take leaving a job, it doesn't take any of that. It's how you start your day.
I know when I was teaching yoga, that's something I always used to say. People would say to me, how long is it going to take for me to do a handstand? Or how long is it going to take for me to be able to stretch and do this? And I would say, well, how long do you want it to take? You know, and I would suggest to them always, consistency is key. Doesn't have to be an hour a day or 3 times a day. Yeah. Just do 5 minutes a day, so you can start to embody that momentum within you. It's like this invisible force to me. It's like you're showing that you're committing yourself to source, you're committing yourself to God in that moment. You're saying, I'm committing. And for me, I find that I have to often just remind myself of that. Today I'm committing. Yeah. So I think you can shorten the time span of the things that you think you have to do to start to develop yourself, is just recommit every day, just recommit to doing the right thing.
That's perfect, because it is. And this is the thing that my search and my exploration and the places I've went took me back to, and I've said this to you many, is simple. Is when we realize that these things, all of what we've talked about now, is incredibly beautiful and empowering and will shift your life, but strip it all away and take it and put it in a nutshell. It's how we ended it. That's what's important. And what will happen is if you start with where we ended it, everything else we talked about will naturally come to you. And that's the beautiful part of this, is that knowledge, that wisdom, it's already there. But you've got to make that commitment. You've got to look at these simple things, how you start the day, how your thoughts, what they are. You know what I mean? That's where you begin this journey. And then everything else that you're listening to us and going, wow, that's exciting, but it's not me. I can't do it. It's I don't have the time. That's not true. That is an absolute lie that your mind is telling you, that if you start with that commitment, if you look at those simple things, everything we've spoken about and more is way more than possible. It's who you are. It's what you were born to be. Look at a child and remember that's you. You were there. And we've got to, we learned, and now it's time to unlearn and then relearn. That's that process.
Yeah, I love. I don't know if you know who Bentinho Massaro is. He's a pretty spiritual teacher, but he often talks about using your feeling state, your emotional system, as a guidance system. So to me, that feels like the clarion call. The clarion call is, how do you feel? If you don't feel that great, or you're settling or normalizing a mediocre state, don't believe it. Number one, don't believe it. Heed the call. And then starting to trust the process of seeing what the adventure has to bring to you without necessarily knowing the outcome, but continuing daily to recommit to something that you can't see. And I think that even though you and I continue to daily do the work, it's something that you just continually commit to every day. There is, I liken it to a bridge. And it's like, okay, there's a center point, the 0 point on the bridge. When I made it to 51%. So just one toe over the halfway line. My life changed. And what I believed that was possible for my life, the bubble popped, and I couldn't believe that I had been living so small. And it was just me taking that one toe over to that 51% mark, where I knew that I just was like, wow, actually, I can accomplish what I want to accomplish, and I can find that peace and happiness that I desire, and my life can be as big and beautiful as I desire it to be. So it's not like I had to go from 0 to 100 or even 0 to 75. It was just like, I just have to make it a little bit past that halfway mark. And really the possibilities for me, I fear didn't have it didn't have a hand over me anymore. I felt like I was in control rather than something being control of me. And that was just a really great feeling to be able to co-collaborate with God and source in that way, where he was just asking, he was just asking me for my daily commitment and my trust. Yeah. And if I could just commit and trust, the rest happened. And I'll admit, I do have times where I suffer, but it's always because I forget. And I try to drive the bus by myself. And I just then have to just recommit when I'm realizing that I don't want to suffer anymore. It's like, all right, just stop, recommit. It's okay. It's cool. Let's do this again. Remember who you are. Okay, let's go.
Yeah. And that is what we will do this human lifetime. Yeah. This is what we're here for. But as long as we stay connected to that source, and we keep coming back and doing what we're doing right now for you and I, depending on what another person's purpose is, that's all that's asked of us. Mm-hmm. And the suffering part is a necessary part, because also what I've noticed, like if I look at the last 6 to 8 months, in that suffering and a couple of operations and surgeries, I learned to simplify even further. And each time I overcome another challenge, I am gifted with just another layer taken off that surface. And every time another layer comes off, it allows me to connect just that little bit deeper, just that little bit simpler, so that when I'm around people and I'm in that state that I need to be, I don't really need to say a lot anymore. I don't need to do a lot. Just my natural presence is becoming enough to be, my business is called Catalyst. I am a catalyst. That's why it's called that. That is my natural aim, is to get to a point where just my sheer presence is enough for a person to feel that trust that you and I are talking about. They can say, this guy exudes that trust. And in that presence, I can see that all this stuff that he may talk about that seems far out to me, I can believe this. Because if I can believe it, because beliefs drive us, our belief systems, then anything is possible.
I love this aspect, as we will start to wrap up here, of being there as a facilitator and as a guide, but really understanding that what we're trying to share and exude is almost the work that we've done, the accumulation of the work that we've done, and it just coming through us in a way where it automatically, invisibly activates and connects in the energy field of the other, without us necessarily telling them what to do, or this is how you're going to achieve this. It's like, no, this is all about you. This already lives within you. We're just going to work together to activate and help to remind each other of who we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
It is.
Erin, thank you so much for joining me today, and let's talk again soon.
We will. And thank you, as always.